Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi everyone, this is Mallika Pathak from Miranda House, University of Delhi, continuing with the course on conductance for the students of BSc Honours Chemistry and BSc with Chemistry. This is Module 11, Lecture 2 of the series. The academic expert of the course is Dr. Amrita T. Sheikh, and the recording is being done under the DTH Swayam Prabha project of the MHRD New Delhi. Now let's try and recall what we did in the previous E-class. In the previous E-class, we looked at the applications of conductance measurements. The few applications that we had discussed were in the determination of degree of hydrolysis and the dissociation constant of the weak acid or a weak base. The second was determination of solubility and solubility product. Third was determination of the ionic product of water. Fourth was determination of the degree of hydrolysis and the hydrolysis constant value. One of the applications that we mentioned but didn't do was conductometric titrations. This was because of the limited time of the E-class. Now in today's E-class, we are going to talk about this major application of conductance that is called as conductometric titrations. Before we start with conductometric titration, let's recall what is titration. You've all done titrations in your labs. You were using a visual indicator like phenolphthalein or methyl orange, and you were titrating acid versus base. So you had two things actually. You had a solution of known concentration in a burette, and you had a solution of known concentration in a conical flask. The solution of known concentration in the burette was called as the titrant, and the solution of unknown concentration, whose concentration you actually wanted to determine and was taken in a conical flask, was called as titrant. You would add the titrant to the titrand so that the color change would take place of the indicator. Where the color change would take place, that is called as the endpoint, and from the value of the endpoint you were using the formula of M1V1 is equal to M2V2 and getting the molarity of the unknown solution or the molarity of the titrand. You also did a similar titration where you were monitoring the changes in the pH, that is a pH metric titration. So again you had a solution of unknown concentration and you were adding a solution of known concentration and monitoring the changes in the pH of the solution. When you plotted the graph of pH versus volume of titrant, which is called as a pH metric titration curve, you were able to get the value of equivalence point, and from that equivalence point and the formula M1V1 is equal to M2V2, you were able to get the molarity of the unknown solution. Now today we are starting with conductometric titration. Here we are actually monitoring the changes in the value of conductance. So just let's read what is the principle. The principle of conductometric titration is based on the fact that during the titration, one of the ions is replaced by the other, and invariably these two ions differ in the ionic conductivity, with the result that the conductivity of the solution varies during the course of the titration. Now what does it mean actually? The setup looks like this for conductometric titration. In the conductometric titration, instead of using a conical flask, you are using a beaker. You can use a 100 ml beaker, 250 ml beaker as per your requirement. In this beaker, you take the solution of unknown concentration or your analyte. Take the titrant, the solution of known concentration in the burette. You put a conductivity cell which is attached to a conductance bridge. We have already talked about this in the previous E-classes. We put a conductivity cell attached to a conductance bridge into the beaker and monitor the changes in the conductance of the solution where the conductivity cell is dipped by adding the solution from the burette. So we are adding the titrant to the titrant and monitoring the changes in the conductance of the titrant through the conductance bridge and the conductivity cell setup. Because you are adding a solution which will have different ions from the solution which you are trying to analyze, the ions conductivity will vary. Let's say I have HCl in the beaker and I'm adding NaOH from the burette. Because the conductivity of the HCl will be different from that of the NaOH, there will be changes in the conductance. Some of the ions will be replaced, there will be change in the conductance value, and this change in the conductance value will lead us to a value of equivalence point. How do we get the equivalence point? We cannot just simply know the value of equivalence point by doing the titration as in the visual indicator. We have to plot a graph. We plot a graph of conductance versus volume of titrin, similar to what we do in the pH metric titration curve, where we plot pH versus volume of titrin. When we get a graph like this is conductance versus volume, and when we get a graph like this where the two lines meet or the two curves meet, this is called as the equivalence point. So the volume at which the two curves meet gives you the value of equivalence point, and this equivalence point in conjunction with the formula M1V1 is equal to M2V2 will give us the concentration of the unknown solution. Now there are 2 or 3 things which we have to keep in mind while we are doing the conductometric titration. See, we want a graph where the two curves, when they meet, it should be an acute angle. Now but it is not always obtained. Why is it not always obtained? You remember that when you do a volumetric titration, your teachers ask you to make standard solutions and give you the values of the intermediate. Say they might say m by 50, m by 20. So they tell you that the intermediate that they had made is m by 20. You make the standard solution which is m by 20. In the volumetric titrations, the solution in the burette and the solution in the conical flask have the same molarity, because actually in the conical flask you are only taking the around 10 ml or 5 ml of the titrant, and because you are taking only 5 or 10 ml, then you add up from the burette. You will obviously, because you are using 10 ml and the molarities are same, therefore how much of the titrant will you be used? 10 ml. So maximum volume will be say 20 ml, and similarly, but the volume change will not be much. But because in the conductometric titrations you have to use a conductivity cell, the opening of the neck of the conical flask is very, very small. So if you put the conductivity cell, you cannot set up the burette so that the burette is just above the opening of the conical flask, and there is also conductivity cell. So to avoid this, you use a beaker. Now when you use a beaker, whether you use a 100 ml beaker or a 250 ml beaker, the volume in the beaker will obviously be larger as compared to that in the conical flask. Now if you use the same molarity solution in the burette, let's say you've taken 40 ml of the acid in the beaker and you add 40 ml of the base for it to titrate, but just see that this is the kind of graph that we obtain. So 40 ml will be required for going down, and another 40 or 50 will be required for going up. So the solution already had 40 ml, you've already added 80 to 90 ml now, so around 150 ml. So the volume is very, very large. When such volumes are obtained, you do not get an acute graph the way here shown. You will get an obtuse graph. When there is an obtuse graph obtained, then there are errors and the equivalence point that you obtain may not be correct. So reducing this error in the conductometric titration is very, very important. And how do we go about doing it? There are 2 ways of going about doing it. Either you multiply it by a correction factor. The correction factor that you use is either you multiply it with V plus V dash, or you multiply with a factor of V plus V dash by V, where V is the initial volume of the solution and V dash is the total volume of the reagent added. So let's say you had 40 ml of the solution in the beaker. So 40 ml, now you are adding, let's say, 1 ml of the titrant. So then you will, whatever conductance value that you are getting in the conductometer, you will multiply with 40 plus 1. Then you are getting the conductance value, which will be normalize and will give you a graph which will be acute in nature. Or you multiply with a factor of V plus V dash by V. I'm repeating here, V is the initial volume, which is 40 or 50 or whatever you've taken in the beaker, and V prime is the volume that you are adding at each point during the course of the titration from the burette. When you put this correction factor, then the graph that you obtain will be a acute kind of graph, and the obtuse graph will not be obtained. Now this correction is happening because it is presuming that the conductivity is a linear function of dilution. That is only to a first approximation. So if conductivity varies with dilution and we multiply with this, we are actually correcting the value of conductance by multiplying with this correction factor. There is another way, the one way that most of the colleges all over India and abroad do, and that is they ask the students to differ the titrant and the titrate by a factor of 10 to 20 times. So if you are in a first year, then both the solution, the unknown solution and the known solution, was probably given by your teacher. But as you progress and learn, your teacher must be asking you to make the solutions. So what is the factor that they want you to maintain? The titrant, that is the analyte that you have to analyze, should be 10 times diluter than the titrant, or 20 times diluter than the titrant. So the difference between the titrant and the titrant should be that of 10 to 20 times. So the titrant should be stronger and the titrant should be diluter. And this way you can get a acute kind of graph instead of an obtuse type of graph. Now, various kind of conductometric titrations are done in your classes. Most of the important ones are acid base, precipitation, replacement, redox, complexometric titrations. The ones most commonly done in the labs are acid base and precipitation in the MSc labs. Complexometric titrations are also done in the MSc labs, but some of these titrations are not part of your syllabus of the undergraduate labs. Now, what is important, as I'm emphasizing, is that the change in the volume during the titration should be as small as possible. For this purpose, the titrant in the butyrate should be 5 to 10 to 20 times stronger than the solution taken in the conducting vessel. Let's start with the first conductometric titration, the most commonly one done in the labs, strong acid with strong base. And let's take an example of HCl versus NaOH. Now, initially in the beaker you have HCl and you are taking NaOH in the burette, and you keep on adding NaOH to the HCl solution, and you monitor the changes in the conductance by dipping the conductivity cell into the HCl solution, which is attached to the conductance bridge. So when you do this, you see that there is a change in the value of conductance, and when you plot a graph of conductance versus volume, this is the kind of graph that you get a V-shaped graph. Now, how do you get this V-shaped graph? So initially in the beaker there was only HCl, so the conductance value is very high. This is because of the presence of highly mobile hydrogen ions. Now when you add the base to the solution, the conductance falls because the OH minus of the NaOH reacts with the H plus and forms water. So H plus ions are being replaced by the Na plus ions, and because H plus ions are being replaced by Na plus ions, the conductance value starts falling and continues to fall till you reach the equivalence point. Now when you add NaOH to the solution, the conductance value will start to rise. How do you know this was the bottom? Because after the bottom came an increase. So you need to plot a graph. You cannot know that this is the equivalence point unless and until you continue to do the titration this way. So you are adding NaOH to the solution and you see that there is an increase in the value of conductance. Why is there an increase in the conductance value? Because OH minus ions also have very high values of conductance. So after the decrease, there is an increase in the value of conductance. I must emphasize here that at the equivalence point, only NaCl is present in the solution along with water. After the equivalence point, the conductance continues to rise, but this increase is less steeper as compared to the decrease. Why? Because the conductance value of H plus is more than that of OH minus. So while going down, the conductance value falls sharply. While going up, it does rise sharply, but not as sharply as that in the decrease. So therefore, you do not get a symmetrical V graph. You in fact get a slightly tilted kind of V graph. So this is about the strong acid, strong base titration. Now let's look at weak acid with strong base titration using the example of acetic acid with NaOH. Now because acetic acid is a weak acid, what you see is that initially the conductance value is very, very low. This is due to the feeble ionization of acetic acid. What was happening in the case of HCl? You had a very high conductance value. But in the case of weak acid, it is very low. Why? Because acetic acid is feebly ionized. Now when you add base to it, what happens is there is a dip, a very small dip that is observed. This dip is due to the replacement of H plus by the Na plus, and also due to the suppression of the acetic acid due to the common AN effect. So why is this common AN effect? The acetic acid, when it reacts with NaOH, forms sodium acetate. The acetic acid, when it reacts with NaOH, forms sodium acetate. This is a strong electrolyte and will be ionized in the form of Na plus and acetate ions. So initially the conductance value was low for the acetic acid, but now when some amount of sodium acetate is formed, this some amount of sodium acetate will act as a suppressor of the acetic acid due to the common AN effect. So there is a dip in the value of the conductance. But if you continue to add NaOH to it, more and more of acetic acid continues to get neutralized to form sodium acetate, which is a strong electrolyte, and therefore there is an increase in the value of conductance. And this happens till you reach the value of equivalence point. After that, there is an increase in the conductance due to the addition of NaOH, because NaOH contains OH minus. OH minus is a very highly mobile conducting ion. Therefore, there is an increase in the value of conductance. So first, there is a dip because of the suppression of the ionization of acetic acid by the sodium acetate, which is getting formed in the solution. Then there is an increase due to the sodium acetate, which is formed in the solution, which is a strong electrolyte. And then after the equivalence point, there is an increase due to the addition of NaOH, because NaOH contains OH minus, which is a highly mobile conducting ion. So you have a steep increase in the conductance value. One thing that has to be emphasized is that this curve, although I have shown it linearly, it's actually a curve. And how do we obtain this intersection? We actually, so this is a curved region. This is a curved region. Let me show it to you. This is a curved region. Now because this is a curved region, therefore what happens is you plot a dotted, or you extrapolate these curves, and at the point where they intersect gives you the equivalence point. Now why is this curve there? This is curved because sodium acetate is a salt of the weak acid strong base. So there is a hydrolysis which takes place around this point, and because of this hydrolysis there is a curve obtained, and this leads to a curvature which can be which can lead to error. But if you plot lines which are touching the curves, or if you extrapolate these lines and they meet sharply at a point, they will give you the value of the equivalence point. Now let's move to the mixture of a strong acid and weak acid with strong base, and the example that we take here is HCl and acetic acid mixture, and we titrate it against NaOH. Now the curve is very, very simple to understand and very, very easy to observe actually. The important point here is that initially when you are taking a mixture, so I take a mixture of HCl and acetic acid, the first equivalence point that you obtain is for the neutralization of HCl. Once the neutralization of HCl has taken place, only then will the neutralization of weak acid will take place. So in this case, what is important is that when you take a mixture of strong acid and weak acid, the neutralization of a weak acid only commences when the neutralization of the strong acid takes place. So this is a graph that we obtain for a strong acid, weak acid with strong base. So first you have HCl versus NaOH, then you have acetic acid versus NaOH, and this increase is only due to the increase in the conductance value due to the presence of NaOH. So this is to be emphasized here. First equivalence point for the strong acid neutralization, and only after the neutralization of the strong acid has taken place that the neutralization of weak acid will take place, and once that has taken place, the increase is due to the presence of NaOH. So that is another graph that we wanted to take a look at. Now let's look at a graph of strong acid with a weak base. Obviously we have emphasized here, whenever you have a strong acid in the solution, the conductance value is initially very high. Now because you are adding a weak base to it, the weak base, because when you add it to a strong acid, continues to neutralize the strong acid, and there is a decrease in the value of conductance. There is a decrease in the value of conductance because H plus is being replaced by the NH4 plus ion. So there is a decrease in the value of conductance. Once the acid is neutralized, then your conductance value becomes constant. Why? Because ammonium hydroxide or the weak base that you are taking is very feebly ionized. So there is very little change in the value of conductance, and therefore even though you are adding ammonium hydroxide to the solution or a weak base to the solution, there is no change in the conductance value. So you get a graph like this. So there is a decrease because there is replacement of H plus by the NH4 plus ions, but after the neutralization or the equivalence point, this value becomes constant because you are adding only weakly ionized base into the solution. Now let's look at the titration of weak acid with weak base. Because we have already talked about the titration of weak acid with strong base, the titration is very similar. We are taking acetic acid as the weak acid and ammonium hydroxide as the weak base. So there is initially very low value of conductance because you have taken weak acid to it. Now when you add ammonium hydroxide to it, there is a dip. Because there is dip, there is a decrease in the value of conductance because acetic acid is being neutralized by ammonium hydroxide, and also its ionization is being suppressed because of the formation of ammonium acetate in the solution. And then there is an increase in the value because ammonium acetate is a strong electrolyte, and there is an increase in the value of conductance. When all of the neutralization has taken place, then the value of the conductance becomes constant, because when all of the neutralization has taken place, then you are only seeing the changes due to the addition from the burette, and the addition that you are adding is of ammonium hydroxide. So the ammonium hydroxide changes very little. The conductance value is very little for this solution. So because why is it very low? Because it is very feebly ionized in solution. So the conductance does not change, and conductance does not change. So you observe a graph like that. So this graph is very much similar to that of the strong acid till the equivalence point. But after the equivalence point, this becomes constant, whereas in that case of strong base, you were getting another steep curve. So this is about the weak acid with weak base titration. Let's study precipitation titrations with the example of silver nitrate with KCl. The important thing to remember in precipitation titrations is that a sparingly soluble salt or a salt with low solubility should be formed during the course of the titration. So let's take the example of KCl with silver nitrate. You get silver chloride, which is a sparingly soluble salt, and everyone knows about it, and KNO3. Now because there is not much difference in the conductance value of Cl- and NO3-, you observe an almost horizontal line when you add AgNO3 to the KCl. But once the equivalence point has been achieved, then you see an increase in the conductance value, which is continuous in nature. So you can use conductometric titrations for precipitation titrations. Now let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of conductometric titration. What is the major advantage? The major advantage is that conductometric titrations can be used for all those titrations where there is a need for indicator and there is no indicator available. So let's take an example of weak acid weak base titration. There is no visual indicator available for weak acid weak base titration, so you can use a conductometric titration to study that titration. Also, in case you have colored analytes, you have turbid analytes, you have dilute solutions, then they can be titrated conductometrically to give you the value of the exact concentration of the analyte. Another important point is, because it is very accurate and is giving you the value of equivalence point, it is much more accurate as compared to the volumetric titration. And here the errors can be minimized as the endpoint is being determined graphically. Now let's look at the disadvantages. The disadvantage is that it is a non-specific property. Because it is a non-specific property, so if by mistake you have added a solution which should not have been there, then the conductance of the solution is going to depend upon both the solution that you wanted to analyze and the solution which has just come by mistake. In fact, one common mistake is that while doing the conductometric titration, people use tap water. Now tap water will obviously have ions, and in fact that tap water is used to make a solution. The conductance value is going to be coming out much higher as compared to what it should be, because the ions of the water, which was not deionized, will add to the conductance of the solution which was under consideration. So we should always use conductivity water while making the solutions, while doing the conductometric titrations. Another important thing is that because it is non-specific in nature and electrical conductance is a measure of the current carrying capacity, therefore it depends upon the ionic strength. So if you want to use a direct conductance measurement, it will become useless unless the solution contains only one electrolyte which needs to be studied or analyzed. So very important that you make pure solutions, you use conductivity water, and you avoid any kind of impurity being added to the solution. So with this we wind up conductometric titration and conductance as a topic, and I want to emphasize what we did today was that we talked about the titration, we talked about conductometric titration, we talked about the various examples of conductometric titration, starting from strong acid strong base to weak acid strong base to mixtures to weak base, strong acid strong base to strong acid weak base, weak acid strong base and weak acid weak base. We also looked at precipitation titrations, then we looked at the advantages and disadvantages of conductometric titrations. So with this we wind up. Thank you so much. Please stay at home, stay safe, take care of your family and yourself. Bye bye. Thank you.